Atlantis has been like, you know, a pet project of mine. And, you know, a lot of scholars don't want to deal with it. You know, it's too controversial. It's too woo-woo. It's too, you know, fanciful. So I remember mentioning it to Dr. Ben. It was like one of the first times I met Dr. Ben. And it was in East Palo Alto. And, you know, it was a brother there and he was selling a book on astral projection and he clowned that. And then I brought up Atlantis and he clowned that. But right after then, Asa Hilliard came over to me and he says, you know, hey, if you're interested in Atlantis, you might want to check out Gerald Massey's book and Albert Churchward's book. So I thought, you know, that was really nice. You know, he didn't have to do that, you know. I thought, wow, that's a really nice thing, you know, to do. And then I remember Van Sertima being at Marcus Bookstore. Oh, by the way, I saw this thing Sunday. It was on national TV, Marcus Bookstore, and they did a thing just before Meet the Press started, and they did this thing on Marcus Bookstore. And, you know, people are going back to Marcus Bookstore and buying books and things. And so, you know, they had Blanche on there and they had different people talking about it. But I remember being at Marcus Bookstore and Dr. Van Sertima was speaking. And that was the time that, you know, Kruglin's book on Monuments on Mars had come out. And so people was asking him, well, the Olmec faces on Mars, you know, and he was just getting frustrated with people asking that. And then I asked about Atlantis and he was like, no, I don't deal with Atlantis. You know, he was just, you know, he looked like he wanted to jump on me, you know, just, you know, stop asking me these damn questions. You know, but I've persisted. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Glad to see Bobby. Bobby Waters is in the house. Want to say something, Bobby? You know, how are you?
I'm fine. Sneaking off early from work. I'm still supposed to be working 5:30.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah. Well, we won't say anything.
Don't tell.
Somebody might see you online.
Yeah.
Oh, the money.
You know what, Kofi? I have that book, Bad Blood. I have that book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
right up the street from us.
Right, Tuskegee, huh?
That's right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, wow.
It's you know, it's that was devastating. That was
well,
really
you know who burst that out?
Go ahead.
Kennedy, Ted Kennedy.
Yeah. Ted
Kennedy. I'll always big him up on that. He's the one, you know, so that went from like 1932 to 1972.
That's right. It's just a total experiment. That's right.
Yeah, and
Kennedy, what he did?
So there's a book called Bad Blood that's in Kofi Anpin's. Yeah, he's holding it up now.
Oh, okay.
And that's talking about the Tuskegee experiment.
Oh.
Talking about.
And they made a movie about it too.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, this movie. I think what's his name? Fishburne is starring in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he the only one that went and joined the army and got his shot, and the rest of the guys wouldn't do it.
Really?
That's an old movie too. It's been on quite a while.
Wow. Yeah.
Is it called Tuskegee experiment?
I think called it Bad Blood.
It's called Bad because that's what they was told that they had. They didn't tell them that they had syphilis. They told them that they had bad blood.
The sister thing started when the guys come out of World War II, and they got their things. So what happened is, you know, would be in Alabama, you know, they'd always experiment on us. So it wasn't no big thing.
Well, yeah, because I have
but the hard part was when they worked with Tuskegee. They went
Wow.
along with the program, and that's because, you know, they were scared. They didn't have no choice. They got intimidated.
Well,
And-
it was the National Institutes of Health
Yeah,
that was doing it. And so,
yeah.
you know, that's intimidating right then. So I don't want to get off into that because
Yeah,
that
right.
is a total nother subject. And maybe
That's
maybe we'll focus on that one day, you know, in these classes. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Okay, my screen is disabled. Mama Darnisha, are you there? You can let me share my screen. I'm still not able to share my screen, but soon come. I'm really appreciative of you all joining today. Let's see. Maybe I need to send her a note. Maybe I need to text her a note saying, "Hey, let me
Yeah,
share
because
my
she has
screen."
her,
Looks like she's on mute.
her sound is off.
Yeah, but hey, Kat.
Hey, how you doing, Minister Imhotep?
All right, man.
Kofi,
Yeah.
All right, brother.
and the rest of you all. Some of you I can see, some I can't. Good afternoon to
Well,
everybody.
Malik, Damani, Kofi, Bobby are on that I can see right now.
All right.
She's opening it up now.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, I still can't share the screen, but
Oh, you can't?
no. So I sent her a note, so she'll, I'm sure
Okay.
she'll get with us.
She probably can hear you.
Ann, how are you? Ann, my niecey is here, has joined us, Miss Mariana. And you know, I'm going to have Miss Mariana to come and give us a class one evening. She wrote a book called Own Your Own Shit. And that's an acronym. And she can tell us what that acronym stands for. But really taking responsibility for your own, you know, stuff. Don't put it on other people. And hey, go ahead. So, you know, I'm giving you a plug on your book. Can you tell us what the acronym for your book stands for?
You know, when you got the minister cussing, it's real. Woo. So, yes, the book is called Own Your Shit, and the acronym means some healing in there. And so I created a book. It's a 50-page interactive self-help book, and basically it helps you go through the cause, the effects of your trauma, and then it helps you to create your own guide to creating a rehabilitation plan. So it's really doing well right now at colleges. A lot of social workers are getting training now, and as of the last month, the work is now going national. I've been teaching instructionals in New York, Atlanta, soon to be Chicago. So I'm really excited about it. I think the work is really applicable now because when we're dealing with nation building and revolutionary work, we can't be as effective if we got our own shit that's brewing beneath the surface. So Own Your Shit is, yes, it has expressive vulgarity, but it's more about the acronym, which means some healing in there. We all have some healing in there to do.
Very good.
Oh, that's
Sounds
excellent.
interesting.
Well, sometimes you have to get profane in order to get profound, you know.
That's
so.
right. Oh, I'm gonna take that. That one.
So yes, I'm still trying to share my screen. Pookie, I'm glad you could join us. Oh, hold on, she's calling me. Hold on, just a second. Hey, can I share my screen?
Uh-oh. No.
Yeah, let me share my screen. All right.
Let me see if I can. I'm not in front of the computer right now. Let me see if I can do that remotely.
Okay. All right.
Bye-bye.
Cool. So she's not in front of the screen right now. She's going to let me know remotely. Celeste, give thanks. Glad you could join us.
Sister Celeste.
So Pookie, are you working from home now? What's happening with you? You're on
I
mute.
have been working at home since early March.
Uh-huh.
Even before the pandemic started, I have been working it from home. So yeah, every day.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the new normal.
So now, would you share with people that are on this class what you do? What is your
I'm a civil engineer in water and wastewater treatment processes. Right now we have 3 projects under construction in the city of San Mateo. We are expanding sewer capacity to reduce flooding. And we're also building a huge underground storage tank near the Expo Center. I think that's what they call it. And then I'm working with Department of Water Resources on changing the water guidelines for the state of California. So they're trying to reduce them. They're concerned about the effects on sewers when they do that. So anyway, those are my projects.
Okay.
Sounds like you're busy.
Well, you know what? I'm always impressed, you know, when I hear what you're doing. Can people see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So,
Minister
Th-
Imhotep, this is
Yes.
Carnisha. Can I interrupt you for one moment, please?
yes, yes.
My apologies. I'm in a little complication here. I'll be back to my computer. But just in case I get held up, there's one thing that I wanted to ask the group. I wanted to ask you earlier, but the speaker who I would like to have speak next week is Dr. Jones with the vegan challenge and the Black Vegan Talk. But he teaches a class at 5:30 next week on every Wednesday. And so I told him that I would ask the group if we would consider starting just this one Wednesday for next Wednesday to go from 4 to 5:30 for one Wednesday.
You know, I'm okay with that if everybody else is. That sounds good. You know, sometimes we have to have a modified schedule. You know,
I'd appreciate the flexibility, family. And I'll make sure that Ty puts it in the newsletter and that we also announce it again on Sunday. But I really want him to present to us. And so thank you all. So I'm going to mute myself and probably hide my face as I travel back to my computer.
okay. Thanks again. So yeah. So today's, if you can see my screen, today's topic is Atlantis. And if I was thinking, I would have had like you know, the Isley Brothers song, the Atlantis, come in. But I'm not gonna do it. So I'm gonna talk about the Atlantis, the movie, and the movie AQUAMAN from an African-centered perspective. So, you know, that's out there, I know, but bear with me. So, you know, I was talking to Mama Darnisha, just preliminary. So, you know, what we're doing now is reaching back even before this date that says January 2000. We used to do this Wednesday night class at the Oak Park Center, and then we moved to the Meadowview Center, and we would create this schedule. And, you know, we'd put some famous person on there, and we'd create this schedule, and we would have like different classes every Wednesday. You know, like we had Reverend Robertson one day. We had this guy, Lonnie DeWitt, who worked he was a correction officer, and he had written this book called In the Car, which talks about how white supremacist group have, you know, their goings on in the correctional system, and they were actually minting coins with swastikas on them, etc. You know, we'd watch different movies, and on this time we would, you know, there was Sugarcane Alley. Sister Leslie, God rest her soul, did one on the Hosea. We had a sister and brother come in and talk about male-female relationships. Doris did 2000 Seasons. Brother Brazima talked about the Tree of Life. We talked about Stolen Legacy. Sister Regina did that. And I don't know how many of you have seen this movie. It's a great movie. It's called Cosmic Slop. And it's George Clinton. It's like 3 or 4 vignettes. It's pretty good. We talked about the destruction of Black civilization. Bertha Rose did that in March 2000, and Dark Alliance. And this is talking about the crack cocaine that the CIA put into the Black community. And it was a book written by this guy named Gary Webb. And then, you know, we talked about television and and Sister Sheila did that. And so we just, that's how I'd like to do this class. You know, I'd like to create a schedule like this, and we have some people on, that are already on the schedule. And I put this in. This is the very first. This goes back and shows you how far we have come. This was lithographed on some tin in the 90s, and it was Brother Minister Makalisi's cousin that did this. He did this, kind of like undercover at City College. I was with him when he did it, and this is all on tin. So just show you how far we come. So now to really begin our class, I want to start out with this book by a friend of mine. His name is Stephen Mailer. It's called The Land of Osiris. And this kind of like springboards us into, what most people think about, the quote unquote myth of Osiris. So, and this is page 99 of his book. And he says, now I can also weave other disparate pieces of information together into a coherent tapestry. In 1992, I engaged in a series of protracted discussions with Hakim on the subject of Atlantis. And at that time, he presented a very dim personal view of the myth of Atlantis with a pose which quite frankly surprised me. He stated that there is no real proof of the myth, and Plato may have fabricated the story of Solon receiving the information from Egyptian priests. When I brought up Edgar Cayce, I've heard it pronounced both ways. Let's go with Edgar Cayce, and the Western mystery school traditions of Atlantis, Hakim stated that they were just following Plato's lead. The motivation Hakim expressed for taking this stance was the way the Atlantis myth was used to indicate that non-African people created the monuments, i.e. the pyramids, the Sphinx, etc. Hakim objected to the possibility objected to the racist way, I have a hard time pronouncing that word, the racist way the myth of Atlantis has been utilized, namely an enlightened group of white people escaping a dying continent and civilization coming to Africa and taught ignorant, backward indigenous peoples the trappings of civilization. I should mention that it was clear that Hakim was expressing his opinion of the myth that had been utilized to promote a racist sense that Africans were not capable of creating high civilizations without a Caucasian root. I have mentioned that Hakim is a vigorous Afrocentrist, and his opinion of the Atlantis myth reflects that stance. He adamantly adhered to his belief in the indigenous Cometian tradition that Kemet was an advanced civilization and the cradle of humanity, and did not need Atlanteans nor anyone else to teach them how to build pyramids and stone structures. So, that kind of exemplifies what a lot of people that are African-centered people, hey, don't bring up Atlantis because this is somebody trying to take away our African thing. And then I just want to read a little bit more, just on the following page. He continues. So that was in 92, and then he saw Hakim again in 97 after Hakim had revealed himself to be an indigenous wisdom keeper of Kemet. And so he says, I proposed to him the myth that Atlantis was a mythologue, that is, a general story passed down that referred to the global maritime culture that existed before the flood, before the cataclysm 11,000 years ago, a civilization that was centered in North Africa in Kemet. I further proposed that if there indeed was a continent of Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Africa, it was connected to Kemet both by trade and tribal bloodlines, and not in any way separate, a separate, more advanced civilization. Hakim was pleased with the postulation and had no problem with an Atlantis theory if ancient Kemet was a major part of the equation. So now, as I've been researching Atlantis, you know, it's just been something that's kind of like in the background. I don't spend time daily on it, but it always keeps coming back to me. And so I was loaned this book that I never returned from my friend Sababu back in the day. And Sababu, if you ever hear this, you're welcome to come get the book, but you can pry it from my no, I'm just kidding. So this is John G. Jackson, one of the great African-centered scholars of the day, you know, friends with Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. They used to all hang out together, Chancellor Williams, etc. So he wrote this book called Man, God, Civilization. And in Man, God, Civilization, his work on page 197 to 200 deals with the subject of Atlantis. He cites Colonel Alexander Brahim, who's a French explorer, and the Greek historian Proclus, who told of a visit of Crator to the temple of Neth in the Comitian city of Sais, and the Ethiopian history of Marcellus. So he gives all this, talks about Diodorus Siculus, who stated that the western region of Ethiopia was inhabited by Ethiopians. Now, when we hear that word Ethiopians, we think of people that look like the people in the Queen of Sheba, but that's actually a descriptive term, not a geographical term. And it actually included at certain points in history, the whole continent of Africa. And most of the Ethiopians that the Greeks saw kind of looked like people that are from West Africa, the people that we know from West Africa today. So if we say the western region of Ethiopia, what we're talking about is West Africa. All right. He quoted Professor Leo Fabrinus, who said that it was in Yoruba land. He said, in Yoruba land, he unearthed ruins and palaces with golden walls, which in a distant past sank beneath the waves. Fabrinus found Poseidon's castle, not in the Atlantic, but in Yoruba land on the west coast of Africa. This Yoruba, I assert, is Atlantis, the home of Poseidon's posterity, the sea god by them named OLOKUN. And here is actually a picture of OLOKUN.
Woohoo! Sorry, that got me excited.
Okay, let me go back. Okay, so that's OLOKUN there. And you know, he's kind of amphibious. You know, he's holding almost like a trident. And, you know, he has West African features, what we've come to know as West African features. And now there's a city in Benin, and that's what this picture is showing. So this is artist's conception at the top, how it looked. On the left, and then on the right, this is the way people say Atlantis looked. This is an artist's conception of how Atlantis looked. And then in our lower left-hand corner, some of the walls are still there. And here we see the Great Wall of China. And the reason why this is included is that this structure is bigger than the Great Wall of China. Its length is over 9,000 miles. It enclosed 2,500 square miles.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, okay, you have the masculine Yoruba, Orisha, Olokun, and the feminine YEMENYA. So here's Olokun. You know, this is the way people are depicting him today. And then I got this picture from Baba Greg. Baba Greg, you know, he travels, and one of his favorite places he likes to go to is Bahia in Brazil. And he took this picture. This is YEMENYA. It's a picture of YEMENYA on the right there. Okay. And, you know, I was in Tucson, Arizona. I was there for a big crystal show. It's like the largest one in the world. It had like, I don't know, 26 sites all over the country, excuse me, all over the city. And, you know, they were I was with my son, Ra, and they were taking this one off the boat, this one in the center. And it's a drum. And I didn't see it at first. And he said, Dad, you know, cause he knows I'm into Atlantis. And he says, look at that. So I took a picture, and then as the brother was unloading the truck, I asked him how much it was, and he said $2,500. And then he said, well, you know, if you follow me back here, you know, we can discuss it. But you know, I didn't have $2,000 to buy that. Plus, I can't even play a drum. All right. And then there's this other one, Mami Wata. And she goes back 4,000 years ago. She was protector of water bodies, and there's traditions now where people, you know, go to the beach to give thanks to her. So, you know, Africans were already kind of doing the amphibious mermaid thing before Europeans got involved. Actually, I would posit that Europeans got the concept from Africans. And then following my studies, following my search for Atlantis, a number of years ago, I was in Marcus bookstore and I bought this book, Ethiopia, The Missing Link by Reverend Sterling Means. And he said that Ethiopia was the remaining colony of Atlantis, and that's why they were so prominent in ancient times. And he also said, and many people know this, you all listening probably already know this, that, you know, the Atlantic Ocean was once called the Ethiopian Sea. And now continuing my search, so I'm getting warmer, more Afrocentric, you know, scholars are pointing me to Atlantis. So Dr. Shekata Diop wrote this book, Civilization or Barbarism. And in Civilization or Barbarism, he said that Atlantis was the island of Santorini, which sank during a volcanic eruption during the time of the 18th dynasty, or roughly about 1500 BC. And he describes it. He points out that it's mentioned in the Bible and in the Old Testament. And essentially what happened, a volcanic eruption happened. There were actually Black people living in the Greek Isles. And see, I got something here for, oh, you know what, Malik, thanks for sending that to me. That slide is coming up. Thank you. So, you know, this eruption happened. People were on it, and you know, it you know, when you have like a big volcanic eruption, you have like you know, all this volcanic ash, and it blocked out the sun for months. You know, and this was you know, kind of like you know, when volcanoes erupt now, and you know, it was something that large segments of the world saw. So he's saying that, okay, Atlantis probably was in the island of Santorini. And there he is, the great scholar, the Per-Ah of African history, Dr. Shekata Diop. But then there's this place called the Heracleon. Mariana, Cleon, we could tell him his name is in here. There's this place that they found off the coast of Egypt underwater. And it was known as Atlantis in the ancient times. And it's about 20 miles northeast of Alexandria. And this is located under 30 feet of water. So these are things that people are bringing up. This was in the water, you know, kind of lending to the whole theory, how this came about, the whole theory of Atlantis. Here they're bringing stuff out of the ocean, ancient city. Look at that.
Wow.
Now, I'm not sure about this one, because when you search Heracleon, or however it's pronounced, sometimes you get that Atlantis that's in the Bahamas. So I'm not sure exactly about this picture on the right. I'm not quite sure on that, but I am sure about this one on the left. You know, just want to be accurate, want to be in full disclosure.
Look, they're in excellent condition for how long they've been down there.
Yeah, you know, we're talking about things that are made out of granite, and you know, water's not gonna.
Okay, that's made out of granite. Okay.
Yeah. Now this one too, Bobby. I'm not because I look at the MEDUSA on this. This doesn't look real. This one, you know, but this one on the right is definitely from that. You know, when they were bringing things up. Here again, and you know, this whole city sank. You know, it was on the edge, you know, just on the shores of the Mediterranean, and you know how different things happen, geological things happen, and there again. So we're there underneath the waters. Here they're bringing it up. And here are some that they brought on shore, and look how big they are as compared to the people.
What year did they find them?
You know, it's just within the last 10 years.
Within the 10 years?
Yeah, if you searched on, like, if you took this title that I have here, The Lost City of Heracleon. If you did a search on that, you can find out more information.
Because these statues look like what we've seen in the museums, right? Like
yeah.
So
there's
probably it. Huh?
There's Hathor or Het-Haru there. You know, yeah. There's a per-eye. It's got the, you know, the white crown and the red cap of Kemet. So.
It's interesting that, again, none of the noses survived these excavations, huh?
It is interesting. And then, okay, if you go to like India, there's a sunken city. It's called the sunken city of KRISHNA. It's called DWARKA. And what that means is, in Sanskrit, is gateway to heaven. And this is, you know, now some scholars even venture to say this goes back to 32,000 BC. This is actually off the coast, kind of like off of Bombay or Mumbai, around that region. You're looking at a map in India. Now we get into the comic books here. So I never really read Aquaman comic books, but I did read The Submariner, and essentially their stories are the same. They're both prince of Atlantis. They can control, you know, the fish life there, you know, and they're half surface, half sea dweller. So, you know, so one is a DC comic, one is a Marvel comic, and I'm not really sure which one comes first. I think that the Submariner comes first. But anyway, moving on. So, you know, when we talk about different ways that Black people are portrayed, you know, with respect to the history now. So how many of you remember this movie called Clash of the Titans? It was in the 80s, Clash of the Titans. And here we have CLALEBUS. And the reason why he looks like this is because he had killed all the white stallion Pegasus, the flying horses, except for one. And so Zeus cursed him. And when he cursed him, his skin got dark, his hair got nappy, and he grew a tail. And then when I look in there, I see Medusa. You know, and Medusa is this woman, you know, she did something to one of the goddess's husbands or something like that. And so the goddess got mad and cursed her and made all these snakes coming out of her head. And so, you know, in that movie, this is the way she's looked. You know, she's got an arrow and if you look at her, you turn to stone. But when I was looking at that in the 80s, I was saying, you know, this just kind of looked like somebody when they take their crown off and they shake out their locks, you know, like this sister here, you know. So when I'm thinking, you know, when I'm thinking about Medusa, I'm thinking, you know, this is kind of like a sister or anybody. When they take, you know, you have your locks up in a crown, you take it off, and, you know, you might have that. That's the way Europeans portray us. And then Zeus, I think this is Sir Laurence Olivier. He plays Zeus in that movie, and he says, "Release the Kraken." And the Kraken is this big, you know, Black figure that, you know, is terrorizing this white woman. You know, and this white woman is supposed to be Andromeda. You know, he rises up out of the sea, and they had to do it. It was on the longest day of the year. And, you know, then they brought in the Kraken and all that. But by me reading Black Women of Antiquity by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and there he is, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, the great Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. He has in his book this picture of Andromeda, and she's painted coal black. And her mother was Cassiopeia. And so what they're talking about a place within the Greek islands where Ethiopians, Black people, were. And just to go on further, this is kind of a digression. This figure over here is Circe. And Circe is where, if you did etymology on that word and followed it all the way out, it will lead you to Kirk, which is Scottish, and then will lead you to church. So this is the origin of the word church. And Circe was a person who turned men into swine and fed on them. Think about that when you hear that word church. Okay, now here's Andromeda again. And then when you look at, you know, just Greek mythology and their paintings, they have a lot of Ethiopians in there. They're like, for this, look at this brother here on the left. He's got his locks out. This is the king of Libya. And you talk about Dionysus, that's Dionysius in the center there. And then Zeus.
Whoa.
Zeus, yeah. You know, they don't show you this in the movies, you know, like if we need Spike Lee or Robert Townsend or somebody to make some Greek mythological movies, because and this was on was at Howard University Art Museum. It was a guy by the name of Professor Snowden, Frank Snowden. He wrote a book on Blacks in Antiquity, a Greco-Roman experience. So in that movie on AQUAMAN, they talk about Lord Poseidon. And this is actually the picture that started me on this. So here's Poseidon, coal black, and he's got a trident in his hand. And here's some more, you know, Africans in Greek art. You know, if you did a search on it, you'll find a lot of these pictures. There's a lot more. I can't do them all. Here's Memnon, you know, like Iliad and Odyssey. This is Memnon. And then this is a Greek goddess. She looks very, I guess what they're trying to show is she can really nourish the nation. The sister, she's got all these breasts.
Bunch of breasts.
And then here, some ancient black mariners. You can see, you know, these aren't black people making these pictures. These are Greeks making it. Look at this guy. He's steering the boat. He's got a fro, kind of a fro fade thing, you know, and all these. So, I mean, when you start researching and studying, it is quite interesting. At least it is to me. Now, so this is where we're getting to now. This is where Atlantis is. I found Atlantis. I've been looking, I found it. So this is a satellite view of West Africa. And this place, this phenomenon, you can search, it's called the Eye of the Sahara, or the Rekak. And here is an image from space. It's 25 miles across. And it's used as a landmark by astronauts since the dawn of the space age. So, you know, they say you can see the Pernetters or the pyramids from space. You can see the Wall of China. You can also see this from space. And here, this is an artist's conception of how it looks based upon the description that Plato gives.
So the Eye of Sierra is the same as Atlantis.
Yes.
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 And because we think of the Sahara, we always think of it as being dry desert.
You know, it is now, but in, say, 12,000 years ago, you know, it was, you know, it's gone through a lot of changes. And at one point it used to be kind of like the Mediterranean area. So this is what's left of that place. It's called the Rekak. Here it is from space. The surrounding areas match the description of Atlantis fairly, note for note, as well as Plato described the city as being bordered to the north by mountains, notable for their great number and beauty. You can kind of see that in this picture. The Rekak structure is indeed ringed by mountains to the north. And then there's a video, and it says, in the video mention is made of geological surveys, which shows that the mountains to the north, the Eye of the Sahara, had waterfalls falling from them when the Sahara Desert was not yet a desert. So, you know, I found Atlantis. I've been looking for it.
So it's not in North Africa, it's in West Africa.
It's in West Africa, Northwest Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in Mauritania. So that's what this slide here is showing. The Eye of Africa, located in the Sahara Desert in Mauritania, is believed to be the location of the lost city of Atlantis.
Yeah, because I know some theory was it was closer to the Greek nation and around the island of Crete. That was one of the theories that was out there for some time.
Yes. So, you know, there are many theories associated with it. So I mentioned Reverend Sterling Ming's book, Ethiopian, the Missing Link. And in that, he says that, that all these words that begin with A, you know, like Amazon, Ethiopia is really spelled A-E-T-H. You know,
I've seen it spelled that way too.
yeah, you know, there's so many Allegheny, all these different, he was saying that these are probably, you know, Atlantis wasn't just like one place, that it was a worldwide connected civilization. You know, so yeah, I'm sure there's parts of it all over. And I mean, if you go to Go Gebli Tepe in Turkey, there's some really ancient ruins there. If you go to Peru, the structures are very ancient. You know, the difficulty in it is you can't carbon date stone. What people do is they take the plant life around it, they carbon date that, and then that's, but really you can't carbon date stone. You know, so in a sense, you don't know how old stone is. Here, now going back to that movie, so this is the way it looks like. Say if you were on the ground, this is the way it would look. You know, the Eye of the Sahara, the Rekak. But here we see in the movie, here's AQUAMAN with Queen MERA. They're you know, they jump out of a plane, and then they're in the Sahara Desert, and then they go to this place called the place of the deserters, and they interact with this device that looks like the way the city of Atlantis is set up. Okay, now there's maps that supposedly Herodotus did, and look where he puts Atlantis, right here at Mauritania. So he's got the Red Sea. I mean, it's not the kind of map that you're used to seeing. You know, he's got the Caspian Sea, he's got India, he's got Arabia, Libya, Ethiopians, and then over here, the Atlas Mountains, Pillars of Hercules, and then over here, Atlantis. You know, people are saying that they're looking for Atlantis, but Atlantis has already been found. They're not looking in the right place.
Hey, we're trying to get away from Africa, so.
That's right. That's right. Now this one is interesting. It doesn't say Atlantis, but look, it connects the Nile with over here at the Atlas Mountains. So what it's saying, and a lot of people believe this, that at one point the Nile used to run all the way through. So this gets back to your question, Bobby. You know, well, isn't that a desert? At one point, this area used to be very lush, fertile. It's gone through a lot of different evolutions. And this is what Gaddafi was doing. Gaddafi turned the desert into a lush place by digging down and getting those underground rivers and bringing the water up to the top. Everybody okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody with me? All right. So here, Malik, thank you for sending me that. So here we go. Those of you that go to Starbucks. I didn't realize this until I started. I would look at this picture. It never occurred to me that this was a mermaid. you know, but here's a rear view. I didn't know they had a rear view. And then somebody put this, you know, as I was searching for it, it said, you're in the mother of harlots, Babylon zone. Fertility, fertility in your face, Dagon of the Philistines. You know, but isn't this interesting? And how it looks, how it is similar to Olorun, Orisha.
Yes.
So now, Aquaman, you know, one of the things that was, you know, one of the central themes was the trident. He was trying to get Poseidon's trident, you know, to unite the kingdoms and become, you know, the king of Atlantis. But if you go to India, the god Shiva, Mariana, Shiva, on your own, all right, is here, and it has the trident. It's also called a TRISHULA, and so these are various depictions of Shiva. You know, the most ancient ones have an Africoid facial features, but that, you know, it actually means something. It actually has a meaning. Means creation. So it's a trident. So it has like a threefold meaning. So it means creation, maintenance, and destruction. Past, present, future. Body, mind. Atma is a Sanskrit word for soul. Dharma, which is a word that's kind of equivalent to mat. Dharma, law and order, bliss. So it means love, compassion, joy, and love, psychic, spiritual, psychic, happiness, comfort, boredom, pride, repute, egoism, clarity, knowledge, wisdom, heaven, mind, earth, soul, fire, earth, soul, passion, and embodied soul, logic, passion, faith, prayer, manifestation. Yes, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, hey, all that good stuff.
Prayer, manifestation, sublime, insight, and serenity. Now, there's this concept, it's called a bodhisattva. I'm just going to ask those of you that are listening, can anyone tell me what a bodhisattva is? Pookie, do you know? Are you there?
I don't know.
You don't know. The reason why I call on you is because I know that you were doing a serious meditation at one point in your life. Anyone else? Anyone else want to take a guess? No? Okay, so a bodhisattva is somebody who has attained enlightenment. And instead of leaving their body, they choose to remain here to help people on earth gain their enlightenment. Or they incarnate themselves from the spiritual realm to lift the consciousness of humanity. That's what a bodhisattva is. So again, we're getting into the Trishula. It means practice, understanding, and wisdom. Death, ascension, and resurrection. Creation, order, and destruction. And you have these people in India, they're referred to as Nagas and sadhus, and they usually have locks that they're referred, they don't call them dreadlocks, they call them jata. And they carry these tridents. Usually they just have like a loincloth and a trident. And here I got some pictures of that. And this is all in honor of Shiva. Moving on to Dagon. Now this is getting to Samaritan, Philistines, etc. So they have this deity called Dagon. He's kind of half man, half fish. He carries a trident. And Digimon Hansu in that movie Atlantis played this character, King Riku. And there he is. He was really made up. I didn't know it was him. Somebody had to tell me. But here's Dagon, or Anis. You know, the priests, they would put on like a fish head, you know, and in honor of this deity. And when you look at the Pope, you know, now many of us look at the Pope's hat and we say, okay, that's the white crown of Egypt. But also, it looks very similar to the fish hat of the priest of Dagon. Very similar indeed. So, and it says something smells fishy in Western religions. So this is why they say, this is what, Katabasi, this is why they say,
Yes.
this is why they say, you know, Rastas say, you know, the Pope is Babylon. Because here, he's worshiping, you know, he's got on the vestments of the priest of Babylon.
He certainly do. They called him out right.
That's right. That's right. So moving on. So now in Aquaman, they have a villain, and his name is Black Manta, and he's a pirate. And, you know, he ends up getting this suit from the Atlanteans because Aquaman let his father die as they were taking over a Russian submarine. But the real pirates. So in 1991, the government of Somalia in the Horn of Africa collapsed. Its 9 million people had been teetering on starvation ever since. And many of the ugliest forces in the Western world have seen this as a great opportunity to steal the country's food supply and dump nuclear waste in their seas. The so-called pirates. Yeah, nuclear waste. So, you know, the way that they portray the Somalis, you know, they're just taking over the ships and, you know, they're just causing, but they're like any countries, they're protecting their waters. So they noticed that nuclear waste was being dumped. As soon as the government was gone, mysterious European ships started appearing off the coast of Somalia, dumping vast barrels into the ocean. The coastal population began to get sick, and at first they suffered strange rashes, nausea, maldeformed babies. And then after there was a tsunami in 2005, hundreds of the dumped and leaking barrels washed up on shore. People began to suffer from radiation sickness, and more than 300 died. Amadou Alud Abdallah, the UN envoy to Somalia, tells that somebody is dumping nuclear material here. There is also lead, heavy metals, cadmium, and mercury, you name it.
Bad stuff.
Much of it can be traced back to European hospitals. In fact, so like syringes and stuff from European hospitals, particularly Italy, was washing up on their shores. And so they seem to be passing, you know, their waste over there in their waters along the Red Sea. And so so this is an article that came actually from the Huffington Post, and the author of this said, when I asked Abdullah what European countries were doing about it, he said with a sigh, nothing. There's been no cleanup, no compensation, and no prevention. And so at the same time, they're going over there they're taking like a lot of their seafood, you know, shellfish and food stocks, you know, because the Mediterranean is almost dead in terms of life in the sea. And so they go all the way over here to get their fish and other things, shrimp, lobster, and other sea life has been stolen from Somalia. So these brothers took it upon themselves to start attacking these ships. All right, that's the conclusion, and you can draw your own conclusions. My conclusion is that Atlantis has been found. It's in Africa. Parts of things that are in West Africa are still there. And you know, keep in mind, and this is what was said when I was in Kemet, was this. It said that that 80% of the monuments of Kemet are still underneath the sand. And so by extension, I believe that there's a lot of monuments and a lot of things under the sand in the Sahara that have yet to be unearthed. All right, so that concludes my little thing, my little rant on Atlantis today. So are there any questions, any comments? Just jump in. Let's be considerate of other people though. If there's anything you want to say.
So, Minister, why do you think what was the hesitation from some of the scholars that you spoke to regarding Atlantis? Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Joseph Ben Janakinan, why were they resistant to entertain the thought, the conversation about Atlantis?
Well, you know, I guess from their perspective, you know, they're dealing with things that people think are fantasy anyway, you know, like African origin of civilization, African origin of Egypt. And they're always having to you know, respond to the critic, and they're always having to cross their I's and dot their T's. And then you have this concept of Atlantis, which is like some fanciful Greek thing that came in and civilized the African Egyptians and gave them civilization. So, you know, from their perspective, you know, one, you know, Atlantis is considered a fantasy, and then two, you know, they have to be careful because they've written these books and people are always attacking them. You know, like if you go back and listen to Van Sertima's speeches, he's always talking about being attacked in the New York Times, and people are, you know, jamming him up. So Atlantis is just, you know, too fanciful. And then a guy like me comes along and says, "Hey, what about Atlantis?" You know, so they're just vexed about it. You know, so that's my answer. What do you think?
Well, you know, according to my son, he always talked about primary research.
Yes.
He said, if you can't go there and see it and prove it, then, you know, it's, as he said, a conversation is just what it is. Conversation without documentation is just what it is, conversation. So he always say that all the time, because that's his specialty, his primary research. And I think people like Dr. Well, I've been serving and all that, since they never went there personally and saw that stuff, that this is why they would not make that kind of commitment.
Yeah.
Because they, you know, because then you really would get dogged out.
Yeah. And you know what? Thank you, Kofi. You know what, Malik? A lot of this stuff that I'm presenting wasn't out in the 80s. You know, but apparently somebody knew about the Eye of the Sahara because they were using it as a landmark when they was going into outer space. So somebody knew. And then, you know, to find those maps of Herodotus, which have it on there. Wow.
Yeah, they're still sitting on a lot of information. I understand that there's still thousands of pieces of African artifacts in European museums that haven't been cleaned up and placed on display, but they're back in the back rooms and in the basement and what have you. They're just inventorying the artifacts there. And Dr. Williams mentions it in his writings of the destruction. He said he began his research in Europe because there was so much African art in European museum. And he said it's at a level that you just simply wouldn't believe.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, on that note, Kalabasi, when you think about at the end of, I think it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you see them adding some artifacts, and they show this this basement. I don't know where this is, in a museum or what have you, but they show thousands of crates unopened in that movie, and that made me think about what you just referred to.
Yeah, they're warehousing stuff that comes out years. A lot of the stuff that we see on display, they've had it for like years, sometimes decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you also have to understand too that Europeans have always wanted to keep us in the dark because they want to claim all of this. So they're not going to ever let it come out and show. So they're always going to keep stuff hid. That's why it's so important, as my son would say, do primary research. If you can't prove it, just leave it alone. Because the European is not going to give you the head up. Because you have to remember that he controlled the world by being a racist. In order for him to maintain his supremacy, he have to do this thing. Because we know that as we studied, that we taught the world, but look what happened. He plagiarized everything and redid it and then put it out there. And that's why a lot of us is totally confused, because all we see is what they put out there. And that's why it's so important that we begin to go back and bypass him and go back and start doing primary research, because when we do that, we come out with a different perspective.
Exactly.
A different outlook, because we're not trying to hide it or not trying to plagiarize it, because we can come out with the truth. That's why it's so important that we begin to continue to do this primary research. If not, we'll always be misled.
That's right.
Two things
some things you just have to leave alone.
Someone just said something.
Yeah, there's two things that stood out to me. And one of them was just kind of a question I would always have as a child, when I noticed that it wasn't just the cross that represented Christianity. A lot of the times it was the symbol of the fish. And I remember asking my mother so many times, like, well, why do they use the symbol of the fish when they don't believe in these varieties of evolution? When we're told through Christianity, the woman comes from a rib of a man in a garden and all these things. So that was one of the first things that stood out when we were talking about the Pope using the crown, which was symbolized a crown of the fish. And then another thing that stood out to me was canceling of the divine feminine, because a lot of that YEMENYA, the Oshun, the water goddesses, which is so much of what this planet is made up of, it makes sense that part is pushed away as this pagan African way of life. But again, it's just kind of reminding me of how the divine feminine is canceled out of the creation stories that a lot of the time we don't get privy to. So when you talked about Orunmila and just that whole African spirituality realm of coming of the water and being so prominently connected to the water, that really made me think about what was the first African? Because I think sometimes we romanticize it and we see Lucy as this, proud Black sister that's on the front of Essence magazine with a head wrap on that just fell out of the sky, instead of like how the actual evolution of what a human looked like before Homo sapien and all these kind of things. So it just kind of made my mind kind of wander on like the creation stories and feminine and the fish and where we derived from before we became actual walking bodies on earth.
Yeah, I had picked up on that a little bit too, especially seeing the people that was walking around with these fish robes, and I kind of reflected on that connection too, because many biologists argue that human life actually began in the sea and
Exactly.
moved on to the land.
Me too. The Dugon. That's the Dugon. Go back to Dugon mythology.
Yeah. Yeah, which is so close to the Yoruba tradition if we're going to talk about these fish-like beings, these water-like beings, then evolving to land, then evolving into the Africans. And I don't hear a lot about that story outside of African spirituality where things are channeling through and how that evolution. So it definitely made my mind wander on that. That's really exciting to me.
Yes,
you know, I don't know. Did you see that? Did you see the movie Aquaman?
I saw part of it. I didn't see the whole thing, but now I know what I'm going to Netflix tonight.
Well, so there's a scene in Aquaman where the guy who's Aquaman's half brother and Dolph Lundgren's character, they go to this place and they see Digimon Hunsa's character. And, you know, so they're talking about taking over the surface, and his character don't want to have anything to do with it. And he says, you know, we're going to teach man. You know, and when you study the mythology of Dagon, he comes up out of the water to teach man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that movie. I saw it. I've seen that movie probably 4 or 5 times. I just really like all the color and the costumes. I will say that. But I guess I feel like it's important to just mention or to restate that education in our society is not meant to enlighten.
No.
It's only meant to give people
control.
enough so that they can go out and do the work that they want them to do. It's not meant to provide a spiritual base. It's not meant to show them how to love or even treat each other right or manage their lives really in general. It's just made to create someone who can work and do just what they want and nothing else.
That's right.
And while Jimon Hansu's character was talking about teaching humanity, his character was the one leader in that grouping that was killed.
Say that again, Bill. Say it again, Bill.
Jimon Hansu's character, among those leaders in that circle, his was the only character that was killed.
Yeah.
The one that wanted to bring enlightenment.
Yeah.
That one. Right.
Can't have that. Can't have that.
Yeah. That guy took his trident and threw it at his. Yeah. Yeah.
Of
You know,
course,
it's subliminal. So much of this stuff is subliminal, and as we become more informed, we're able to see these subtle relationships. You know, through our associations with the Wosei community and studying on our own. But for people that don't engage on that level, these subliminal images have an opportunity to be more effective.
Right.
You know, and undermining your subconscious. And that's the way subliminals work. You know, they work on your subconscious where you're not really consciously focused on what is being taught to you, but it's playing on your subconscious. When you have a body of information that allows you to compare things, to reconcile things, to question things, to arrive at different perspectives, those subliminal techniques don't work as well or as effective. And so to that extent, you know, you're freer. You know, you got to free your mind.
Right.
There is great benefit in dialogue too.
Oh,
Right.
for sure. You know what, and that's so. You know, I'm really geeked out on some of these things. Like, you know, I have a presentation like this on the Black Panther. And you know, you guys let me know if you want to hear it.
Next, we'll take that next.
You know, so you know so the early days of Wosei, when Bill was there, Kofi, you would remember this, and I guess you'd be the only one that's on this class. But Bill would talk about things like theological eyesight. And he would say, and what he would say about that is, whatever you look at asked yourself, where is God in this?
Yes.
You know, so everything, you know, God is everywhere. It's omnipresent. It's omniscient. So you can find the divine in everything.
In plain
That's
sight.
And it's always in plain sight. And you know, when they make movies, they're giving you some kind of subliminal thing. But the thing about movies, and I heard this in a video series, it's called Holographic Disclosure. And it said they'll tell you, like, you know, 8/10 of the truth, but then they'll put a turd in the punch bowl. You know, you know, just you know, you're not, you know, no matter how good that punch is, you're not gonna drink it after you see that thing floating in it. So
That's so great.
That's gross.
It is, but it made me think, you know, so whenever I can't watch a movie, I can't read a book, I can't watch a TV without analyzing it, without, you know, putting it through the, you know, why, you know,
Exactly.
you know, why now? What does this mean? I don't want to get into. The first person I heard say this thing, I know it's very common, but he was the first person I heard say it. Ustadi said, we don't want to get into the paralysis of analysis, but when I look at stuff, I can't watch a speaker. I can't watch a movie without, you know, analyzing it, you know.
You're supposed to.
Yeah, your mind is
That's
open.
what it's all about. I don't, you know, everything I look at too, I always, you know, want to figure out what is this for? What's the purpose?
Yeah.
I was watching this martial art movie, and one of the master teachers was teaching this young child, and actually it was a Jackie Chan movie, and he told the child, if you only look at the surface, you will always be fooled.
Oh, is that the Karate Kid movie?
Yeah.
You know what? I love that
movie.
I love that version of the Karate. You know, and like when he goes up and he goes to that monastery and the snake.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, and he tells him what he's really seeing.
Mm.
He's thinking that the woman is imitating the snake. But the snake is imitating the woman.
Yeah.
And that's how he ends up winning that fight at the end.
That's right. Yeah.
I love that movie. I love that.
Yeah. And yeah, so I was really listening to him. Yeah.
Yeah. That just came on last night, didn't it, or something?
I think you should put this together, a black, not this black movie list, but you've always, I've been going to Wose since I'm 30 years on and off going to Wose. And you've always been so good about incorporating the symbolism of multimedia through music and through movies. I think it would be so good if the same way there's like book lists, I mean, this might exist, but if there was like a movie list so that when we're watching, we can see the symbolism and the history because it makes for even more dialogue and conversation when we're seeing how it's being turned around as propaganda instead of truths, you know, and information. So I would just love it. You're always referring to a million movies and songs. I would just love it if you could give us a piece so that when we're sitting with our families, it's like we can have good conversations and, you know, oh, Imhotep taught us about this. When we're watching it, let's use our critical thinking. Let's use our third eye. And then that way we're watching for more than just entertainment, it's edutainment. And I would love that.
You know what? There is something. There is something. You know, Bill has his hand up. I'm sorry, Bill. I'm getting used to this. I see your hand is raised. What did you want to say? Thank you, Mariana.
Only to question for the whole group, should we as aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents of Black children be actively blocking Hollywood's sort of light treatment of Black death in almost everything they produce, at least until the kids are teens and can accept the idea that Hollywood's going to do that and
Breaking up.
for themselves.
Yeah.
You know what, Bill? Let me just respond in this way. This was a number of years ago in the 90s. We had a sister that was like Teacher of the Year in one of the school districts up here. Her name was Dorothy Redemeyer. And she was from New York. And she said when she would go to movies, she would get frustrated because, you know, there would be Jewish people there and they would be talking in the movies. But what they were doing, they were talking to their children.
That's right.
And they were explaining to the children, okay, you don't want this, or you know, they were explaining it from their point of view. Now, Mrs. Al-Kabalan would not let our sons see the Disney Peter Pan because it had all the squaws and, you know, it was a lot of negative stuff. And so, you know, you think, okay, well, that's just Disney, but they have a lot of isfest in it. Now, conversely, The Lion King had a lot of positives in that movie. You know, like Mufasa was Osiris, and Sarabi was Isis, and Simba was Heru, and Robert Guillaume's character Rafiki was Toth, was Tahuti, and you know, and at one point in that movie, I haven't seen the latest one, but at one point, you know, when Mufasa comes back and he says, Simba, you have forgotten me. He says, you've forgotten who you are, and so you have forgotten me. And then he tells him, he says, Simba, you are more than what you have become. And this is the lesson for African people. You are more, you know, because in that movie, Simba's eating bugs. He's at the top of the food chain, but the people around him have convinced him, you know, that, you know, so in order for you to be around us, that you're not a threat to, here, eat these bugs. you know, and that's what we're doing. Hey, look, we only got about 3 minutes. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And I just want to say, what'd you say? I'm sorry? Yeah. I have a proposed schedule right now. So there was that person that Darnisha mentioned, which is going to be next Wednesday. It's going to be talking about vegetarianism, I believe. And then I don't have dates for this, but I have Darnisha. She's going to talk about her 30-day excursion in Ghana. Brother Kofi Kandwani is going to talk about his life experiences and meditation. Okonona Holmes and Oyen are going to talk about the early days, the formation of Ile Omide. Brother Malik is working on a subject. He sent me a note today, and so he's formulating that. And when he gets that formulated, then we'll put him on the schedule. And then we just want to, you know, maybe like make a couple of months schedule out and just send it out to people, because okay, you may not be able to make it every Wednesday, and every subject may not be particularly interesting to you. So you'll be able to you know, pick and choose your you know, when you want to come in, or you know, you might want to share, hey, they're going to be talking about this today, or they're going to be talking, you know, etc. So
Imo, I'd like to be on the schedule. I want to do Bacon's Rebellion.
Okay. All right.
What is that?
Bacon's Rebellion is where they invented
white people.
The creation of white people.
So what that is if I can say, Bobby, because it's a lot to it. Bacon's Rebellion happened in 1684.
Okay. 81.
81, and at that time, it was no white people.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
It was Irish, it was Englishmen, right. It was you know, and then after that rebellion with all those people, Africans, you know, other indentured servants, Native Americans, you know, white supremacy comes in and makes all these rules.
That's right.
And that's what she's talking about.
Yeah, I got it now. I just missed that. I didn't recognize the word, but I understand what she's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when that was, you know, before they started naming peoples and segregating people so that they could control them.
Hey, one quick thing. Anybody familiar with the works of Graham Hancock in his book Fingerprint of the Gods?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I used to watch his YouTube videos. He do a lot of deep sea diving finding ancient monuments and ancient artifacts. It make me this presentation makes me want to go back and look at his.
Okay, it's 6:30, and the women of Wose, the WOW women of Wose, my wife is making her hands. You know, it's like you're talking too loud, and I just get excited. So she's coming in. She's coming in to sit in with the women of Wose. Wow, they're supposed to start at 6:30. So give thanks and praise for everybody coming. See you next week. We'll be here on the Wednesday night seminar series.
Right. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Be safe.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good night, everybody.
Night. No, so. I guess.
Long time no see. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Oh, Bill, when do you go?
When are you guys leaving, Bill?
We're not quite sure yet. We're packing up. We're obliged out. Our lease is up here on the 26th of July, but we're actually thinking we'll leave maybe a week earlier.
Okay.
So sometime between the 6th of July and the 26th of July.
So are you driving back or what?
Yeah, we're still planning that out, trying to plan out a long road trip, drive to meet family in San Diego, and then friends in Phoenix, and more family in Houston and Dallas.
Oh, wow.
And more friends in Atlanta. So
excursion, road trip.
So first we got to get things sorted, sold off, and packed.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good deal. Blessings.
Thanks.
You know, I just thought that they were coming back in.
Okay.
Yes. Let me ask Darnish.
Doris, you're still on tap with Caltrans for another few months?
At least I'm going to do another year.
Another year.
Yeah.
Part of the timing regarding this move is because Rita just retired about a month ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So around the same time that they were kicking everybody out of the office for COVID, she was retiring.
That's perfect timing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
1 week after.
I've been on a phone call at the commission meeting all day since 9 o'clock this morning. They finished at 5. Yeah.
So essentially Zoom all day? Or
yeah.
some other video?
So this was between WebEx or YouTube, and so I didn't have to say anything on this one, so it worked out. I just had to take note and participate, be in, connected. Actually, it was an interesting situation because they had a gentleman, Charles T. Brown, speak on a presentation on equity, because with everything that's happening socially. But last month's commission meeting, the chair, Paul Van Kleinenberg, they got into an issue about one of the programs, and he said the mic was hot, and he then said, go down there and beat the crap out of him. And everybody could hear it. And mind you, that's what the chair of the commission, and mind you, the director for Caltrans is a brother, you know. And then there have been other things that when our director Amish Shotkin, they always referred to him by his first name, just by Tokes. And then there was one time where one of the commissioners referred to this African-American woman who she says, yeah, girlfriend, you know, it's kind of like, all right, that's not cool. And then when another African-American would speak before them, they would not refer to him properly. So the presentation by Charles Brown today was talking about explaining what equity is and how if you're looking at things and stuff. And it was really a moment, as my coworker said, you know, just gave you goosebumps, because they basically pulled the Band-Aid off, pulled the sheet back, and really addressed it and said, you know, hey, they're going to have to do better. They're going to have to address racism and unequitable and understanding and defining what equity is. And when you look at something, but who do you not consider and who do you only consider? And it was a really good presentation that this brother presented. And so they're about to try to get something new. And it was ironic because I had interviewed for a position a few months back and I didn't get it. And then I had a debriefing with this guy about it, and he's like the chief engineer. And at the time he says, Doris, I really want to talk to you about why we're not saying, you know. And I said, okay. So then the COVID thing happened. And then at this presentation today, he goes, yeah, because he wanted to talk to me afterwards. What do we need to do? How do we make a difference? I've been working at Caltrans for 31 years. And to see that we're still not, and finally, we've got the first African-American woman got appointed to a CEA in an engineering position for the first time, you know.
Okay, so you're primarily talking about HR, about hiring and promotion, and maybe about purchasing and other.
Yeah, it's all those things. So it'll be interesting what happens.
Get to enforcement.
Yeah, so they're gonna have to make some changes, you know. So we'll see.
Were you talking about enforcement at all? About chips?
No. They weren't talking about enforcement. They're just talking about what is the policy? What are we doing? How do we get people engaged? How do they know what's happening? What projects that are affecting their neighborhood? How to be inclusive? You know,
PHP is mostly out of your scope, right?
Pardon?
PHP is mostly outside your scope, right?
What's outside my scope?
The California Highway Patrol.
Yes, they're not in ours. Yes, they're not.
So that does raise the question, at least in my mind, of not just red light cameras, but freeway monitors. Are those within Caltrans scope?
Freeway monitoring is within Caltrans. So freeway monitoring, we have to provide that, but we don't maintain. So the freeway monitoring only for incidents. And so, but what was interesting that was brought out, when we talk about more livability and having more access, when we talk about more bike and trains and things of that, the fact that even though we're talking about more access, pedestrian walkability, the way that Black people end up being fatalities more so at a higher percentage than everybody else. Why is that? You know, so what are the things that they're doing? So there's an issue that perhaps our policies and what we do or we don't do is impacting Black people and brown people and poor people to a higher degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so traffic calming things that might be.
Yes, exactly. So you're saying, okay, then, and they're putting all this money. It wasn't an issue when Black people were living in the city, and now that they gentrified things, now it's an issue and it becomes something they're going to talk about. So when they say, oh, we're going to, yeah. So then when they put the trees in there and everything, it wasn't really, you know, you don't benefit. So by the time the trees are full grown and nice, then they gentrify and somebody else moves in. So.
Okay. So one more thing, kind of personal. The one automated ticket I got was not on surface road, but it was on a highway in DC.
In
So,
DC, yeah.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where there was a picture of the car, there was a bill, and there was no option to not pay it.
Exactly.
It just was.
But, and those are not done. So those are usually toll agencies operate and run those. And that's it's not actually departments.
Yeah, and again, I'm feeling the same thing. The lower you get in terms of scope for governance, the more you get that kinfolk crap going on and Black folk being abused by local power structures. If you elevate to the state level and say the state is going to enforce the speed laws and other laws and instrument the highways, the more that gets to possibly be fair and not a matter of some officer's judgment.
Right. So, okay. Oh, I see. There's Pam. Is that you, Pam? Okay.
How are you guys doing?
All right. All right.
Good. Am I interrupting a meeting or am I in a wrong meeting?
No.
Not at all.
Our meeting. Yeah, no, that was the leftover from Imhotep's meeting. So,
oh, okay.
I was just hijacking the one highways expert that I know.
I heard that.
Caltrans and highways.
But no, and the thing is, though, Bill, in regard to enforcement of traffic light signals, that kind of stuff, that's by actual ordinances, because they cannot put a they cannot do violations for interchange. Let's say, you know, like the red light ones, it has to be where they had to have the numbers where they had high accidents and or fatalities in order to have it where they can do a red light violation.
And that's a jurisdictional problem.
Yes, exactly.
But on the freeways,
and those are usually owned by toll districts. So the toll roads, yes. So like even in the Bay Area, those roads that are tolled, they're not run by Caltrans. They're run by separate agencies.
Yeah.
The state doesn't get that money. It's a separate agency, like BATA, Bay Area Transit Authority.
Okay. I'm reminded of the video, the YouTube video with the CHP officer just wailing on this Black woman, had her on the ground in the middle of the freeway. Going to town.
So, all righty. But, you know, once again, it also goes to unions because the correction officers in CHP are the most powerful union in the state.
Yeah, and even Newsom probably doesn't have the guts to take them on.
No. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. So, Pam?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
All right. How are you?
Good. It's always good to see you guys.
Yeah.
It's always good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, Sister Doris.
I'm hanging in there.
It's always good to see you, sweetie.
Still got to punch that time clock, you know. So.
Yeah, we do know about that.
But, you know.
We do know about that. I'm wondering where all our ladies are.
Yeah, because I spoke to Ingina yesterday. Because she was talking with Imhotep, and I said, okay, what time, you know? Because I was just telling Bill, I was in a meeting from 9 o'clock this morning until 5 o'clock. And it's like,
oh my God.
And there were, it was 169 agenda items.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. You with the city, huh?
With the state. Yeah. The 100.
Oh my God.
I was like, okay. I actually kind of fell asleep. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, put your picture in there and doze off, take a nap, come back, and they're still meeting.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, you know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I know that's right. I've been, you know, between the meetings that we have in the morning, trying to get things done, running a few errands for the school, and, you know, it just hasn't stopped, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's also, you know, a good stressful thing, but it definitely is a lot.
Yeah.
Because now we're dealing with how are we going to reopen with COVID-19?
Yeah, and that's the real. My sister, my youngest sister, who's in the Bay Area, her son goes to a private school in the Bay Area, and she's on their board. And they were one of the first to then have them come home, and then it start the at-home learning, and then they're looking at starting out for the school year, kind of a hybrid. Partial there so many days and partial at home kind of thing, because they anticipated when that second wave hits that they'll be back home by November anyway. Because they're at Black Pine in Berkeley, as the school he goes to. Yeah, and so
See,
it's
for
like,
us, we know that for preschool, kindergarten, they're just too little.
Yeah, you can't do that.
To be confined,
yeah.
Right? So how do we bring them back in? What rooms do we use?
Yeah.
What's going to be safe, distant learning? You know,
you can't hug.
And how do you keep babies from playing with each other?
Yeah, don't touch your friends. Don't touch their pencils. Don't go touch their desk. You know, and you'll be antibacterial all day. You know, and I was actually talking to my mom this evening, and she would say she got her water bill and was high. I said, that's because you've been doing more hand washing.
Okay, and sanitizing everything.
Exactly.
But, you know, I don't know how to read that, because white folks is used to not touching each other and being distant. We are very hands-on, loving, nurturing.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for us to even try to comprehend how you would keep babies away from touching you.
Well,
how
children, it's just really impossible. I think
it's virtually impossible.
Yeah. And even though it's funny, because at work, I've always been the germaphobe, you know, because I have the MS. I like anything, my body, when it goes to fight anything, it takes so much out of me. So I always have, and I don't do the flu shot and all the other things. So I've always been very diligent with, you know, antibacterial, always in the car, at my desk, in my purse, you know, always. And then people come to my desk, I'm like, don't touch, you know, I put pins on the other side. And, you know, when people lick their fingers to do paper, and I'm like, please don't, you know, so with all this happening, so then they're like, oh, no. Because one time I had my coffee thermos on the desk. We were having a staff meeting, and then one person moved it, and I was like, no, don't touch it. So.
Yeah. Now, I could do that in that environment. I could definitely, no, don't come near me, don't touch me, don't talk to me. Matter of fact, email me.
Exactly. But I feel like I've been working longer. I think it's because you're on. And I think that when we talk about what's happening right now, it's so much anxiety. I think whether we realize it or not, you know, we're always thinking about it, thinking, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, it's you know, so we're working in that capacity. How are we going to do this? And I mean, a plan is coming together, but I can't even begin to conceive how you're going to keep babies from playing with each other, from touching each other, from hugging each other. I just can't even begin to conceive that.
How do you keep the doorknobs clean every time each person goes in there?
Goes and touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, you almost have to have a full-time person just doing cleaning.
Exactly. I went to get a pizza the other day, and I kind of was glad that they had a table right in front of the door outside with the napkin holder, so that you take a napkin and open it, you know. And I was like, oh, just my kind of, you know, thing, because I'm like, touch it, I already got the napkin, you know, I've already go in there. And then, because, you know, everybody was panicking with the rubber gloves and everything, getting gas. Luckily, we're not driving that much. But so then I saw someone, they said, the bags that people use to pick up the dog poop, get the small ones, use that. So I got, because that's cheaper than the gloves. So I'm like, okay, I got some of those in my car, so I can take one of those out when I need to go get gas, you know, got the poop bag. You know, learn whatever strategies, you know, it's like, okay, then I keep the Lysol spray by the door and, you know, telling Kaba, okay, you come in, wash your hands, that kind of stuff. So watch the doorknob when you get in the car, you know, so. Yeah. And then with, you know, my mom, she's going stir crazy. She's 81, and she's like, she's used to her routine of going to church on Sunday, and then rest on Monday, go to the dollar store on Tuesday. You know, that's her exercise, walk around, and then rest on Wednesday, and then go see her brother in the care home on Thursday, and then rest on Friday. You know, so now she's at home. We won't let her go to the grocery store. And it's like, even, you know, if she goes to the store and have to stand longer in a mask, and she's a cancer survivor. So she's like, already, I can't get, you know, so she's wiping.
And it's nerve-wracking, because, you know, when we think about our immune systems, we have high blood pressure, we have, you know, diabetes, we have, you know, cancer, we have, you know, sickle cell, we have all of these ailments, right?
Yeah.
or no, I shouldn't say ailments. We have all of these health conditions, right, which makes us more susceptible.
But, you know, and that's the thing too, that there is a public health issue. And when we talk about the type of care we get, how it's treated, how they look upon us, Rahotep.
Mama Fania.
Hello. Okay. So Rahotep made it back to Detroit. He's doing, and this is his last year of med school, and he wants to do family practice. And the funny thing about it is because he doesn't like the smell of hospitals. Okay. But, you know, I was like, you're going to be a doctor, you don't like the smell of hospitals. But he's at Henry Ford. He had been at the VA and then at Beaumont. And Beaumont had before, when they sent him home, there were 1,500 employees at that hospital that were tested positive. So, and the VA, just you recognize not having the resources, they didn't have enough gear, PPE for the students. And so then he gets back, he's at Henry Ford, which is a hospital that has more resources and funds. But he said there was a patient that came in last week, a brother in his 30s, a youth counselor, Black man who on meth, okay, been on meth for 6 years. COVID-19 positive, syphilis, and HIV.
Oh Lord. My God. Say a prayer. Good God.
You know, and, you know, Rahotep would say, even just trying to find a place that would take him with COVID-19, syphilis, HIV, and meth. And his family didn't even know.
The combination.
Right.
The combination, where does it fit?
Exactly. And the thing is, you know, and because what he said is that they're saying with the COVID-19 is affecting the cognitive also. And so therefore, that's why they didn't know what was going on. And then, but, you know, syphilis does that too, you know.
Right.
And,
right.
So, and then they said, well, is he schizophrenic? You know, just not knowing there's so many things going on. And so they finally found a facility that would take him, you know, because with the COVID-19, they're not taking anything. And so then he said, then you have families, you know, you're living in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. And it's a whole family, extended family. The grandma goes to the hospital. You can't go see her, nobody. She dies. Then the auntie ends up going. Then the son is calling the doctor saying, what's happening? Am I going to die? You know, he's seen 3 of his family members in the household die of COVID-19.
Scary. It's scary.
And once again, we're talking about Detroit, where
you're close knit, where there's multiple families.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
And so this is why the East Coast has soared the way it did.
Yes. And the fact that the type of care that they were getting was already marginal. See, that's the thing we talk about, marginalizing in society, the type, how they treat you, how they treat whatever condition that you might have. What do they see? And it's interesting because then as a Black, so then he said on Monday, he switched to nights and he said, called me. And, you know, I'm up here, you know, oh, wow, he's going to nights. He's going to be leaving.
Yeah, I know. I'm scared. Yeah, you got to be on the edge.
You know, you're getting like, oh, why? Is he going to be, you know, he's got to go for the, and, you know, so that's us as mothers, once again.
Exactly.
Retirement. Are absolutely. They say what they have to walk into? And he said there was a Black woman in her 70s and she had some dementia stuff going on. And then they had gotten her situated, and then the nurses called down. She's about to leave. She's trying to go. So she's getting up, and me and my husband, we smiled at hearing what she said, because she says, I'm gonna call me a cab. I'm going home, right? You know, it's just like what Imhotep's grandmother would say, I'm gonna get me a cab.
That's what my mama would say.
And my mother, when she was going through her cancer treatment and she got dehydrated, we took her to Kaiser, and they were taking too long with the IV. She says, I could go get on that 51 bus, you know, so you could just hear. So the woman said, I'm gonna get the cab. And Rob was saying that the Indian physician was like raising her voice, like, calm down, you know, just kind of very antagonistic, where the woman was already on edge because she's there. And, you know, you ask the usual question, what day is it? What year is it? Do you know where you are? Who's the president? And that's always the thing. And then, you know, in Rocco's, and if it's a Black person and they don't know Obama, you know that they've got dementia going on, you know, so. And because like when my dad had his fall, they were testing him and they asked him who the president is, and he says that jackass, you know. like you still got part of your mind, you know. So
they said, yeah, he's sane.
Like, he still got some, you know, some of his brain, you know. And so,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So Rob was saying that, you know, the doctor just had no patience with the woman, and so they called a sitter, and it was like 9 o'clock, and they said, well, the sitter won't be there till 11. And Rob goes, I'll sit with the woman. Oh, so he sat with her for the 2 hours and talked and calmed her down, you know, and he said, and you could tell just because she connected with him. She's like, oh, you know, of course she's gonna call him, yeah, baby, I know your family, you know, like we, you know, just like his grandmother would, right?
Yeah.
And so I know I'm big proud of you, but I'm so glad, you know, so, but he spent that 2 hours with, and he called me, and I said, that's why you're doing what you're doing. That's why.
Yep.
Exactly, because
that's exactly why you are where you are.
Yeah. And when we talk about what's going on and the cost for us to be able to be in the game, because in all honesty, and I tell him, don't think about it, God's going to take care of it, because he's getting $80,000 a year loans. And so when he's going to come out with about $400,000 of student loan.
Oh my God.
And I said, just don't even think about it. You know, you just can't.
Yeah, don't think about it, because when he writes that book, it's going to pay for everything.
So, and I told him, I said, you can't, your goal is never money. It's that take care of your needs and some of your wants. And what my mom always says is, it's not how much money you have, it's how much God blesses you. Because we know folks who have money that go right through their fingers and their hands.
Oh, absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
And you know, it's like witnessing, because we, you know, everybody's getting their checks from, you know, the whatever stimulus or whatever it's called right now. It's like, oh, well, we didn't get a check.
They're only giving you what's yours.
I didn't get one, you know. Cabo got one, and Raka actually got his. So then, and so we went to the mailbox last week, and our mailbox is around the corner. And, you know, I'm mainly paperless on most things, and you know what's in it, you know, so we don't go to the mailbox that often. So went to the mailbox because, you know, I'm like, okay, I ordered some stuff, and I went through it, you know, all the junk mail, and there was a check in there, and from the mortgage company. And I like looked, and it was a $2,700 check. And I just said, thank you, thank you, Jesus.
Because we usually have our refunds when we do our tax and all that stuff. We have it automatically deposited.
Right.
So I hadn't gotten anything. People were asking me, you know, did you get your stimulus? Did you? I'm like, no, we probably make too much money, and I don't know what too much money is. All I know is if you make $1,000 a year, you probably making too much. Right. But anyway. So I got the mail, and I'm looking at this envelope, and I'm like, because it was from the government, I'm like, what did they garnish now? You know?
Exactly.
That's what I was thinking, right? And I'm like, oh my God, it's a check. Yeah. But they didn't automatically deposit it.
Yeah.
I looked at Johnny, I said, I'm going down there just in case they tell me they made a mistake and I wasn't supposed to get one. Too late.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing.
Other money I owe you, because you ain't getting this back.
And that's the thing. I was like, okay, Imhotep needed work on his car, you know, and Ra, his financial aid check won't come till next, so we had to pay his rent for 2 months. That's it. I was like, oh
yeah, it was spent right away, because
you see how God just takes care. I didn't stress about it. It's like it, and
you don't.
When they said Emma's car was $1,200, I'm like, dear, you're not just going.
That's what you got it for. It came in the mail on time.
Exactly. Got your car fixed. Got Rahotep's rent paid.
There you go.
Your needs and some of your wants, but the anxiety of the
time. I just got an text from Mama Connie.
Yeah.
And apparently they changed it to next Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
And then she said, I'm sorry, I did text you and group today. I didn't see that text.
Okay.
I did. I thought, so you're on for the WOW meeting.
Yes.
Oh, I thought I was joining the class.
Oh, the class just finished. The class was from 5 to 6:30.
Oh, never mind.
Okay.
It's so many things going
Yeah,
on.
exactly. Yeah. Well, at least we're on the right channel, right?
We're on the right channel, and we get to say, we get to chop it up a little bit.
Oh,
Okay.
But
so the WOW
will
meeting
you be joining us though, Sister Doris? Will you be able to join us on Wednesdays?
Yes, yes, I'll join you on Wednesday for the WOW meeting.
Glad.
Okay.
I'm
I got it
glad.
on I put it on my calendar, you know. See, you know,
Okay.
you retire, like Emma retired, he'll forget, you know, if he takes a nap and, oops, I slept through the meeting, you know. So he's
There
doing
you
more
go.
meetings, you know.
Yeah.
He
You
gets
know, when
stressed.
Johnny retired, I couldn't get him to do nothing. Every time I asked him to do something, he told me he was retired. So
Oh.
yeah, well, you go to the store, I'm retired.
Yeah.
But it's good to see you, honey.
Good
You
to
guys
see
got an early evening. Wow.
Okay. All right.
Yay.
Well, you know, and we're in this self-serve house. Everybody cooks for themselves now, you know.
Oh, that's right. So you're empty nesters.
Well, yeah. Well, Kaba's here, but he's on his own. It's like it comes and goes, you know. So, oh well.
Yeah. So what's he doing? What's he up to?
Well, after he did the year in Germany playing soccer, and then he came back, and so he started his own business. He does fitness training, soccer training, coaching, that kind of stuff. So,
wow.
And he's looking to go back to school and get a master's, kind of do outreach, you know.
When's he planning to go?
Well, he's looking at the program that he's, you know, he's one of these, doesn't want to put too much money, you know, because a lot of these programs are so expensive. He's, I don't want to do so, but he saw one at UC Merced that he says looks, because that's more affordable than the one he liked at USC was too much. You know, he's like, I don't want to spend that much. And I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, one of our students from Ileomade is at UC Merced. She loves it.
Yeah, they're
loves
very supportive of their Black students.
That's what she said.
Yeah, they're
That's
very
exactly what
artless.
she said.
Yeah, and then actually the Sacramento folks here, the connection, are very much engaged. They do on the radio and do kind of stuff, outreach, Mama Mills and others, you know, so they're very much supportive of them. So it's a good program.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I hear that UC Merced is a very good program.
Yeah, if you're gonna go to UC, to me, and as a Black person, now my kids, I didn't want them to go to any UC schools because I felt like they didn't take care of them. Yeah, out of the one, but I also recognize that that's our taxpayer dollars that are supporting, and we're not getting the benefit. So these Asians and other folks who are taking advantage of that bargain, you know, and we're paying. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So therefore, that's their welfare, you know, as I see. And so the only two that I would send a Black child to is Merced and Riverside.
No, don't we have a student at Riverside as well?
Yeah, Riverside has the
I have to think about it, but yeah.
And the highest percentage there at Riverside.
Mama Fanya, the Jenkins.
Not Malia.
Yes, not Malia, her sister.
Yeah.
Maya.
Maya.
Maya's at UC Riverside. I mean, Merced.
Yeah, Merced. Now, see, because like my youngest sister used to work at UC Berkeley, then went to the College Board and worked with the College Board for 19 years as their Western Regional Director. And now she's come back to the UC system. She's the Office of the President. And so her good friend, another African-American woman, she's got two sons, and one went to Riverside and the other one is at UCLA. Now, the thing is, you see what happens at a certain level of the public institution. So UCLA, their parent group and alumni are very supportive and do treat it a whole different thing. But that environment, I just, no, you know. So, I mean, Ra, you know, he did, you know, the Howard University for the undergraduate, and then he went to Boston University for master's. And
that was Halima School, right?
Yeah, but yeah, Halima that's where she got her medical degree. See, what advantaged it, Halima, because the program she did with Hampton is when she did her last 2 years at Boston, she paid at the rate of Hampton fees and not Boston, because Boston is 20,000 a semester.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But wasn't she military and they had to, I remember she had the military program until they wanted to send her into combat, and she was like, oh, no, that ain't gonna happen.
That military right at the beginning, and they had to get an attorney, and she backed out
right
away. Yeah, she backed out.
I remember that. Fought and won, which was I was happy to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, so he got the Master's of Public Health from Boston. So
Okay.
he's there in Detroit. So he wants to get back to California. The weather is just kind of, once you get California, you become wimps when it comes to weather.
Okay, can't handle it.
It's like that snow and everything. It's like, okay,
I'm one of them. Trust me. From Philadelphia, when I got here, I was never going back.
Well, he was like, okay, first 2 years it worked out. He had a bike. We got him a place. That's the thing is you're going into the city. You don't know it. You're looking for an apartment. And so you got gentrification going on, right? Midtown, that whole thing near the university. So he got into an apartment that was totally redone. I mean, it was like historic, it has the wood molding in the apartments and everything. They redid it. They put solar and all that kind of stuff. But he had a bike. So he would ride the bike to school. And then I was teasing him like, well, it's snowing. Do you need snow tires on your bike? So, but then once he had to start going to the hospitals out of the area, we had to get him a car. And I'm like, okay. So we bought him a car. And then,
and held your breath for a while.
He's never driven in the snow, and they don't do chains there. They just drive in the snow.
Not even with they do the salt, which eats up your car.
Yeah, they do the salt, but then of course certain areas they don't really do it that much. So we bought him a new car because he doesn't know anything about cars. I didn't want him to have to think about it. So we bought him a car, but we bought him a Honda, and the Honda, buying it from Detroit compared to here was about $7,000 less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like, I was like, what? And I'm like, is it this model? Because I told him, I said, okay, we're going to go down there, we're trying to buy it, at a distance.
Wait a minute, 7,000 less there than here.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Because you got to remember the income difference from California on the East Coast.
Because I'm like, okay, we got the Honda Accord, whatever, EX or whatever. I'm like, okay, this is going to be you're going, it's headed for $200 a month. Hey, we'll pay for it while you're in school, and then when you get out, it's on you. And because here it was like $30,000, and there when they said 22,
is it their income, their expenses is based on the income levels.
Yeah.
And so that's why you can buy a home. Like your home is $1.5 million, you can buy it for $250,000 there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that was the thing.
Definitely, cost of living is different.
But the insurance is high because it's
Really?
a no-fault state. No. It's a no-fault state. And
okay.
Yeah, so what we pay for his insurance is high, but like the registration is cheap. I think registration is like $100,
See?
And gas is cheap, and I'm just wondering by the time he leaves there next year, whether all the salt and everything, how that's gonna on the car.
How it damages the car.
Yeah. So
salt can do a lot of damage. But if he's not driving that much, then you should be okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Okay, so when you get finished, we'll just transport it, wherever you end up going.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm like, so that's why I'm waiting. I got my 1 more year. Folks say, how far are you going? I said, my son finishes next year. That's it.
Well.
All right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, Emo's starting to get Social Security. I'm like, okay, how long? But, like I said, I'm dealing with my dad, and his stuff, in his situation. So, but you never know. Like, it's like he went from in great condition to, having to learn how to walk all over again, so.
That's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. So. But,
how are you, though? How are you doing?
Well, that's the thing, too. When I was talking to Ingina, you get to a point, then you have to learn how to just relax and breathe, and not stress. My work is, I'm done, I'm like, I've done all the basics, at this point. So I'm doing good. God is good. I'm like, hey, they're moving around, and they look at me, they're like, what? And it was interesting because I've been on I do injections for interferon for my MS. I've been doing that for about 15 years now. And the guy goes, well, you're stable. Do you want to maybe get off of it? We'll check your MRI. So he did another MRI last month. He says, you have no new lesions. I said,
Excellent.
What is not broke, so let's not fix
Leave
it.
Don't be trying to mess with it if it's all good.
I know in my mind, if I get off of it, I might, oh no, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like I'll
And
just
it gets
continue.
worse.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I hear you.
still enjoy some
I'm
vacation.
glad you're good though.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm moving
I'm
around.
glad you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good. How are your
It's
kids?
got me. You know what? We haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah.
I have to tell you. Wait a minute. I hope I have them here. I have to share with you. You know, I don't have them there. Ty has been asking for us to send pictures and all this stuff, right? And so, I told him I would, find the pictures, find pictures, and get them all set up. And
yeah, because it's funny when Imhotep pulls out one of the pictures of me and him with the stones of fire on Galindo,
yes.
And there's the sign, and you see where the gas. I think gas was like $2 or $1.35. It was like $1.35. You know that was a long time ago.
It's funny because Nate, we were going through pictures, and Nate came across my old budget book, right? And he was cracking up. He was like, I don't believe this. I don't believe this. So I'm looking at him, well, what are you talking about? He said, Mom, you paid $235 for rent? And gas was what?
Yeah.
So him and Aisha thought that was, like back way back in the days of
that's
old,
what you think about.
when they just created water.
When I graduated from high school, I think it was the minimum wage was $2.65. It's like, hey, and
I
it was,
can't put my hand on it
$5,
right
you were like, woo, hey, big time,
See, I can't put my hand on it right now, but when I do, oh, wait a minute, I did. When I do, let's see. I got it. I came across this and I said, I got to send this to them. Then I said, well, no, maybe I should hold on to it until I find, you know how you got copies and then you get duplicates?
Yeah.
Shoot, it's not in this pack. So I'll send it to you because it's of you and Imhotep, and we were at the park.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if it was our first Kusangala at the beach back in 1983, maybe.
Okay.
Might have been 1983. But when I find them, because I'm cleaning all the stuff up, and then once I started going through pictures, I'm like, I know that there's more.
But that's the thing. See, once Imhotep starts going through pictures, then he's gonna get slow. It is so. I figure, okay, and he has all kinds.
It's gonna be a while.
But he's organized. I have to say, his office here, he went through a design on a dime kind of thing, and cleared out his office, and he got the bookcases off of giveaway kind of thing. Somebody got them for like $25 or whatever, and went and
really?
So like, okay, and he was just searching, got him like, okay, got it cleared up,
I just find from one box to another box to a new box.
Yeah.
But I decided this week, I called the dump place, free, you get the free bulk.
Yeah.
I called them, set up a date. So I'm pulling everything out of the house, and I'm going through all the stuff because I'm throwing a lot of this stuff out.
Yeah.
So I want to send pictures to everybody who, I have a duplicate of.
See, the thing is, you don't.
So you'll be getting some pictures.
You don't want to say where your kids have to go figure out what it is. And that's the thing. So I'm like, that's when it freaks you out when you have to go through somebody else's stuff and you say, I don't want my kids to go through this, if I'm gone. And others say, what is this?
Put some labels on this stuff. Put some names, some dates, and some labels on this stuff.
Well, that's the thing.
And then, so I'm putting them in picture books, albums, and, filling all of those up, and they're going to storage.
One of the things I have learned, and that I'm going to get better at because of the experience with my dad these last 6 months, is how everybody has accounts, online accounts and passwords and all that kind of stuff. So then when he fell and hit his head and couldn't remember, so all his passwords, all his logins and everything, and then you have to go through the whole thing of power of attorney to get access. Even for PG&E and Verizon, they were more difficult than Wells Fargo. So luckily, Kaba had set up my dad's iPhone and other stuff.
He
So
knew what it
knew where
was.
some of the passwords were. So we were able to get in there. But once again,
It's
you know,
difficult.
yeah. So I've got 24/7 care for my dad going on. And at first we got these Filipinos that were, you know, $25 an hour. I'm like, wait a minute, this is not sustainable. So finally we found a Mexican woman. So she's staying there. So she's taking care of him. And so that's working out. But
that's good.
You know, his wife died, and now I've got to deal with all that kind of stuff. And it's like,
yeah.
Okay.
I know when Mama Conke, they had to had to find someone to care for her mother. It was very hard going through a couple of people, but knowing people and then knowing somebody who knew somebody, they got the right fit.
And that's
so sometimes you got to go through 1 or 2, 3 people to get the right fit.
But the thing is, you want someone to interact with them because
that's the right fit. Interact with them and love what they do, appreciate what they do, and know that you know that your family is safe.
Exactly. Well, you know, the other thing too is, you know, my dad, old school, he's 85 years old. But, you know, that mentality of men, when they grew up, they used to be taken care of. And the fact that he had to take care of his wife the last few years, he was doing all the cooking, the shopping, and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, Dad, you can't sustain this. So we got the housekeeper coming in and helping, you know, trying to ease it. And he wouldn't listen. So even now, he's getting comfortable because he had pushed himself so much until his incident. And it's like, okay, now he likes this. Okay, what are you doing, Dad? Yeah. Then he wants grits and eggs every morning. I'm like, Dad, you used to be eating your cereal, your Trader Joe's cereal with almond milk. Now you got this Mexican woman making you grits. He said, I taught her how to cook grits and eggs over easy. I said, you got to get your butt up out that chair. You can't be. You know.
So it goes from one extreme to the other.
Exactly. But we were able to, I went down to the Bay, got him on Father's Day, brought him back up here. And then Kaba took him to the driving range because he's an avid golfer. And so this whole thing, he hasn't been able to go to the golf course. So
yeah, because they just opened it up.
Yeah, well, up here they've been open, you know. So, but yeah, so Kaba took him, but because of the fall, because he had when he fell flat on his face, and then he got, you know, and when you get older, there's more room and your head hits around. And then he got, you know, something on his brain. So they had to go in and release that fluid. But it prevented him from being, so he's had to learn how to walk all over again. So just cognitive and physical. And so he couldn't even, so from somebody who was at the golf course 2 or 3 times a week to he couldn't even connect the ball.
I guess I need to stop smacking Johnny upside the head then, huh?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I got to tell him that.
Yeah. But
yeah. All right, darling. Well, it was wonderful having conversation with you.
Next week. So we'll wow next week. And so next Wednesday, the class is at 5 because that helps with the people who are on the East Coast because Makalisi's been participating and stuff.
Okay, so it's at 5 our time?
Our time.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, hold on a minute. Husband, what did you say?
Because the person that's doing the class tomorrow, next week, it's going to be at 4. It's either at 4 or 4:30.
So next week is early. Okay.
4:30.
It'll go out on that, but the Wednesday.
And this is still the Constitution?
Oh no, you know, I guess I'll get around to the Constitution. I talked about the African. I talked about the African presence in Atlantis from an African perspective.
Oh. So is it different topics?
Yeah. So next week, Darnisha has a brother that's going to be talking about vegetarianism and stuff like that.
What was last week?
Last week was
it police brutality?
It was police brutality. No, it was chasing the Saku. It was a long version of my message.
Right.
You know, so I did a long version.
I like that message too. I appreciate your Father's Day message as well.
Oh yeah, you know, it was a great. You know, we haven't.
It was good to see. It was good to see your dad. He's still comedy. He's still comedy.
The Zamani. They put out an '86 Zamani. Yeah.
You know what though, and I keep saying I'll see y'all later, but you know what I thought about, because we're having, we may end up doing our anniversaries on Zoom, you
Yeah.
know, we could do a couple of games. And for our members, what is the oldest thing that you have that represents something from play, and make it a gift? Whoever has the oldest one gets the gift.
Well, you
whether
know, me and Emma,
art-
so besides Makalisi, me and Emma,
wait a
well,
minute.
no, Imhotep, they can't be, they can't do it because we know they got
the day
stuff.
that it opened, you know, so.
We know they got stuff. And so
Yeah.
some of those things that they are not eligible to play.
Yeah. Say, wait.
But maybe there's some games that people can go around the house. You've got 3 minutes to find whatever, or
Well, you can pull out the original worship folder and stuff, but then he'll pull out.
Oh, you remember this?
oh my God.
His robe, his first.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And what year was that?
Wow.
That was 1990.
No.
1982.
82. Yeah, it was before we were
82.
married.
1880.
So this was at Fruitvale and Galindo.
Exactly.
You know
exactly.
what? You know what? This actually, now that I think about it, it has a special meaning because the people that did this are no longer with us.
The artist.
Ishmaima.
Ishmaima.
Yeah, Ishmaima.
You know, Olaremi could look at you and make an outfit without ever measuring you. Yeah. That I remember.
Yeah.
Ishmaima.
So that's 82.
That's 82.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. There's more.
Wait. Yes. Here. Yeah. He keeps things. He has, you know, and because he's cleaned up the office,
he can find it.
Got a couple of boxes. You know. Okay. What year is that?
Okay, Doris Williams.
Doris Williams.
Stones of Fire Leadership Award.
What year was that?
This was 1983, December 4th.
Okay.
So this was an anniversary.
That was anniversary.
December 4th, you know.
Oh wow. I've got a couple of those.
Yeah.
Don't start me now.
Okay.
No, I ain't gonna get you started.
Yeah.
But I have one for completing wasn't new members class. It was I forget, a leadership class that we did, and it was me, Johnny, it was Olaremi. Remember Pam Boynton?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was Pam Boynton. I've got that picture, and a couple others. Because when we finished classes, we used to get certificates.
Right. Yeah.
And then I also remember, what was I looking at the other day? I was going through pictures, and I came across, oh shoot, I can't remember.
Pamela.
Yes, sir.
I got this tie from Loretta Lacey.
I haven't seen those ties in years. In fact, I don't see them.
When John Lacey passed, Makalisi, Bill, and myself, you know, we all participated in his services, in his homegoing. And when we came, remember their house was right off the freeway, you know, off of 580. You could see their house from the freeway.
Okay. The broccoli turned it off.
Yeah. And Loretta came in and she says, I'm getting this feeling that I should give each one of you one of John's ties.
Wow.
You know, so,
wow, that was his wife.
Yeah.
Yes. The 2 daughters. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you knew Mama Fanya, but Imhotep, Makalisi, and Minister Mississippi. Lizelle married Johnny and I. That's why we're still together, because they made it a 3-way. So they enforced it, reinforced it, and reinforced it.
What year was that?
So I was the only wedding that had all 3 ministers at the same time do our vows, right?
What year was that, Pam?
Huh?
What year was that?
Was it? 89.
Oh.
It was in 89.
Wow.
Because Aisha was 5, I think. She just turned 5.
Okay.
She turned 5 December 1st, and we got married the 23rd. So it was somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I never remember my anniversary in all these 40 years we've been together. Can you imagine? We've been together 41 years, almost 42 years.
Yeah, me and Imhotep, we've been together 40 years.
Yeah, because
Congratulations.
I remember. I remember.
Because we met in 1979 and we started dating December. And then a year later is when WOSE started.
Right. So when I got there, you guys were there.
Yeah.
Well,
And
of course you
because
were there. You were there before me,
now
but-
Bill, so when Bill married Bobby, Imhotep gave Bobby away at when she married Bill.
I got to tell you something about that. Bobby's daughter, Bobby's granddaughter.
Oh, granddaughter, her granddaughter.
Bobby's granddaughter is one of our students.
Oh, really?
Brianna. Brianna is Bobby's granddaughter.
Yeah, Brianna Williams, right?
Yes.
Yes.
But here's the thing. She does not want people to know who she is.
I can understand that.
I do understand that.
Yeah.
We had a conversation at one point, and I told her.
Daughter is at Ileoma Day.
Yeah.
Williams. Yes. Bobby's granddaughter. Yeah.
You're
Is that
kidding.
Yeah. So she doesn't want anybody to know who she is.
She doesn't want anybody to know. And here's the thing. One Kwanzaa, I saw her and I like, whoa, and I'm talking to her.
Right,
I didn't pay too much attention.
Yeah.
The following, we had Black History.
Yeah.
And she was there again.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kind of coming back? What's going on? She said, well, my granddaughter goes to Ileoma Day. I'm like, who?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And one of my students.
Yeah.
Yes?
Right.
And so in the conversation, I was telling, I said, the women of WOSE that began, that pushed forward, we don't get credit. And I said, you and Mary, although quiet, y'all were brand, y'all were.
Because you think about it, Bobby is the reason, but Bobby is the reason Imhotep came to WOSE.
See?
And now the Bible that Bobby had, which is signed.
Actually, I have.
He has Bobby's Bible that has her and Bill's name in it.
Yeah.
She gave it to you?
Somehow he got it, and
she loaned it to me. I was supposed to give it back, but
But we won't tell.
Yeah,
exactly.
But
no, you can tell her.
The one that told me about, architecture and how they came up with, how to conduct services.
Yeah.
And she used to take care of
all the bills.
His
She took
grandmother.
Yeah, she took
Mama Meg.
Mama Meg.
Mama Meg. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and I told her, I said, but you never, you don't want people to know that you laid the foundation. You were part of the foundation for WOSE.
Yeah.
You know what? Bobby is very private.
She's very private.
She's very private.
So after having the conversation with her, because she said, well, a lot of my family don't even know that. And I'd rather they don't. So I had to leave it alone.
Right.
But I would
I went to high school with Michelle. And I went to college with Michelle. And me and Michelle were roommates.
Is that right?
We were roommates at one time, and so I knew Bobby. Bobby got me my first job at Children's Hospital.
Wow.
And Bobby was telling me her husband. Well, so yeah, I gave Bobby away to Bill at Jay Alfred's house.
Okay.
And Bobby. A few months later, she was like, my husband is speaking at Allen Temple. It's his last sermon. Do you want to come? And I was living in Albany. They came all the way from Encina Way, which is right,
right around corner from the zoo.
Right.
Yeah.
And they came all the way out and picked me up.
Wow.
And took me to Bill's for that. And remember, Bobby is the one that went over to the
care home.
Care home. Got
Mama Meg. I mean, Queen Mother.
And Mother Smith.
Yeah.
Yes. Because we used to bring them over, and Fanya's like, wow, really?
No, but one thing that I'm remembering within the last maybe year and a half, at a couple of events, I can't recall which events they were, I met Bobby. It's like she saw me and somehow knew that I was associated with WOSE.
Yeah.
So
she was at the the rap spoken word.
Oh, oratorical fest.
Yes.
Whatever it was. And I've seen her like maybe 2 or 3 times. And, you know, in the conversation or whatever, she realized I was associated with Rose. And she says, oh yeah, well, I'm Bill Calhoun's ex-wife.
I'm surprised she said that.
Oh yeah.
I am too.
I'm shocked that she said that, because she did not want anyone to know,
you know,
and associate him with her.
How private she is. And she just came out with it. Oh, I'm Bill Calhoun's ex-wife.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
You know what?
She did not want anyone to know.
I helped Bobby move into this place, and we had Roland there, and she had this long
and we had to do this sofa. We had to do it through the window.
We had to do it through the window, through the balcony.
This was after she broke up with Bill.
This after she broke up with Bill. Yeah.
Wow. Does anybody ever find out what happened to Shaluthia? Do you remember Shaluthia, right?
You know what? I saw something on
That was Bill's second wife, by the way.
I saw something on
Third
Facebook.
wife,
Third wife, yes, third wife.
I saw something on Facebook, and Shaluthia is like a minister. This was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And you know, she was talking about something, I can't remember what.
Yeah.
Because her son is grown now.
Yeah, his son is grown.
Yeah. And Bill lives in Phoenix, is the last I heard.
Was it Arizona? I thought he went to
yeah, he went to Arizona.
Nevada, Las Vegas. No?
He was in Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't want to jinx it, Pamela, but I'm going to so I put in I sent James a note on Facebook. I said, can you have Bill call me?
You spoke
that
to
would be nice.
A couple of years ago.
I spoke to Bill when I got back from Egypt, because I had a question, and he called me. But I would like to do a Wednesday night with him. Makalisi already said he would do it, but I don't want to do it together, and I don't want to talk about anything bad.
Well, you know what though? From what I remember, I do remember that Makalisi extended what do you call it? Not a long arm. He extended his hand of friendship.
Olive branch.
Olive branch, yeah. So he extended that to Bill some years ago. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay. Okay. You know, Bill is in a different space or whatever.
Yeah,
but
he was in a different space when he left.
I just thought that maybe, you know, sometimes I could get Bill to do stuff. And I just thought maybe he would just talk about the formation of Wose. You know, hey, I don't want to talk about, you know, why you left, how you left. I just want to talk about, you know, and then we're also
what made it come into being.
Yeah, we're also going to do a Wednesday night with Ushaka and Makalisi, talking about the formation of the Nile Valley produce market. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know, so I don't want to talk about anything bad. I just want to talk about
No, because it was funny because Johnny and I was talking about Nile Valley, because you know I'm going through all these pictures and stuff, and I'm finding all this history, right? And so of course I came across Nile Valley pictures. And do you remember the no meat tree? That's a sidebar.
Sardo's no meat tree.
Yeah. And so Nile Valley was the mecca of our community when it opened. It was absolutely amazing. And of course I started with them.
OLOKUN used to go there.
I was their business what do you call it? Their business entity, you know, keeping their books and.
Well, you got to be on that show then when we do it. Then
well, you know, Ed was you know Ed, right? My brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And so I was with them when they opened, up until maybe 6 months before they closed. And so I was with them on a daily basis. The store was amazing. It was the mecca. It was the.
Okanona worked there.
No, if she did, it was after I had left. I don't remember Okanona being there.
Yeah, she used to. Yeah, she used to work in the deli.
Then it had to be. It was after. Then it was after me.
Mm.
Because, yeah, it had to be after me because it was me. Makalisi would work in the evening because he drove the bus during the day. Ed would go and pick up the produce in the morning. Ushaka took the middle, like the midday shift, right? Because he had the cleaning business. And so, yeah, he would work the wee hours of the morning, the late night shift, Ushaka. Ed and I worked the day shift, and sometimes I'd be there in the evenings.
And then there was Atiba. Remember Atiba had the long dreads. He used to be married to Maya.
Maya?
Yeah.
Is that the artist?
No, dancer.
She danced at our wedding.
She was a partner of Ushaka's, right?
No.
No. Anyway, see, that's what I mean.
So, yeah, so that rotation happened after I left.
Yeah.
Fania, we boring you?
Yeah.
This is history.
Yeah.
So that rotation, the rotation happened after I left because when we started, we hired my daughter Fumilayo, Makalisi's son, and
yeah, I remember Dean being there.
Shaka's girlfriend, son. And then later on, we had Nate on the weekends that Johnny and I paid him to be on the weekends, right? And so for that first year and a few months, I was there. So right after Aisha was born, matter of fact.
Yeah.
So Johnny would bring Aisha on sometimes on Mondays when he was off, and sometime Baba Kofi would come and get Aisha and hang out with him. So yeah,
he
but
was
you guys
on,
had already left for Sacramento, right?
He was on the class. I didn't leave for Sacramento until the summer of '87.
Okay.
I moved up here in '83, and then we got married in '86, and then he moved up here in '87.
Right. Yeah. Okay. See, I got to get my years together as to where
I know. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But I just came across Sisters Ekandio's minutes and documents of how Biko started.
Yeah.
I just pulled that up today.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
But well, you
so,
know
yeah.
what? You know what? Keisha gave me this folder. And I gave it to Tyemba, and I'm just thinking that he's going to put a lot of those pictures in, you know,
in the book,
because she had, I mean, it was this thick.
Oh yeah, Mama Ekandio kept all kinds of stuff.
It wasn't Ekandio, it was Keisha.
Keisha. Now Keisha's husband, you guys have been keeping up with him, Pete. Yeah.
Pete.
So he has dementia.
Yeah.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has dementia.
Yeah.
Which is why we haven't seen her of lately.
I didn't
about a year now.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's been about a year or so.
Yeah, I guess it's getting worse. So we haven't seen her lately.
Oh no, I
Because
didn't.
we saw her at Makalisi's mother's funeral. Yeah. So
That's the last time you saw her?
Yeah.
But she's been on Zoom a couple of times.
Okay.
You know, I've seen Keisha, on Zoom, but I saw Keisha at the last anniversary, Oakland anniversary.
Okay.
Yes.
She and Pete came.
Yeah.
Both her and
Brother Pete. Yeah.
You know that
because I had called her a few weeks ago, about a month ago actually, and her phone number was disconnected. So she said, you know, the number that I had, this number is no longer in service, which was the Pan African City Alive number.
Oh.
I don't have her personal phone number anymore.
Oh, that's.
But, I just called to check on her, you know.
Yeah.
Because
how's Ekandio? She lives in South Carolina now.
From what I understand, she's good.
That's good.
Yeah. So.
Nabantu lives in Atlanta.
Who?
Nabantu.
Yes.
Yes. I see Nabantu often because her grandbaby is at Ileomade.
Oh, wow.
Kuzari.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So he's at Ilaomade. Yeah, so she stops by.
so Mahib and Okonona live in Atlanta, and Natam lives in Atlanta, and
Natambo.
yeah, yeah.
Arcana.
Arcana.
Yeah, Arcana. Yeah.
All right.
That's what's so good about the Zoom, because we get to reach everybody, you know.
And see, this is the thing. Even if we get back to what we think normal might be, I would love to see us still do Zoom while we're having service.
We said that we were.
But I'm not talking about once a month or once every couple. No, I'm talking about every Sunday that we have service, we should have Zoom on somewhere where we're all connected. And we figure out how we run our services just like we do now. That we figure out how we run our services together so that people from abroad, from all over, don't have to choose. We'll say 1 week, Sacramento another week. Maybe it's on, maybe it's not. But
we got to put a plan. Yeah, it's got to have that.
I think we should continue this no matter what happens going forward.
You know, a lot of people have said that, Pamela. It's a lot of people have said
we got to
that.
make it happen.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity that we may never get again.
Go back to the old brick and mortar by itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
we got to take it. We got to keep it going. We got to take it further. Take it higher.
Right, Sly.
Okay.